Hey everyone, Sandrak here. Uh, that last video I made, well, the first video I made, I guess, got a lot more views and a lot more, I guess, community interaction than I thought it would from just such a quick video. So here I am, 4 weeks later, finally making a MaterialMaker tutorial because a couple people asked for it. This one I'm just going to go over some really basic stuff like where to get MaterialMaker, how to install it, setting it up the way I have it, and basic nodes that I think might be useful. I'll make a more detailed, well actually this will probably be a series of me going through different things like depth and animated textures and whatever, but we'll start off simple. Right, so if you want to get MaterialMaker, you just need to go to materialmaker.org. I'll have a link to that in the description since it's really easy. Click the download button and it should take you to this itch.io page. Press download now. It's free, but you can donate to him if you want. Just click on that. The version I'll be using is MaterialMaker 1.0, which is the newest version. It came out 44 days ago, and I've had to update it for this video, so that I'm using the newest version. Anyway, that will give you a .zip file, and all you have to do is pull the folder out of that and basically run it out of there, and that's it. There's nothing you need to install really. It just comes packaged nicely like that. Anyway, once you open it up, this will be the first thing that you see. It's very basic. It doesn't really allude to much, I don't think. So the first thing you're going to want to do to get it set up the way I have it set up is down here. There's a little show 3D preview button. It's this little cube, little blue cube. You click that, and then if you want to change, you could drag it around with the with the blue and red little 3D arrows down here. This is also how you zoom in and out. You just hover over it and scroll wheel. You have to hover over it and scroll wheel if you want to move the model around. Right click moves the camera around, like rotates the camera. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. But yeah, that's pretty simple. If you want to change the model, MaterialMaker comes built in with a few different ones. So you've got the cube, the cylinder, the sphere, the prism, the plane, and you can also import custom ones. I haven't done that yet. I'm not exactly sure how I'd do that. To be honest, you probably don't need to do that unless there's something really specific you're trying to make. I usually use not the cylinder, I either use the sphere or I will use the cube. I think for this one, because we're just going over basic stuff, it's probably best to use the cylinder actually, because that's looks nice. Right, so the way I have it set up is for dynamic materials rather than static PBR materials. A static PBR material, that'll give you like a set of images when you export the material that you've made, rather than a piece of code. You can right click on it and change it. They've got a bunch of different ones. They've got 3D PBR, that's a bit advanced. I probably wouldn't mess with that if you're new to this. Dynamic PBR is the one I use. There's ray marching materials, which are obviously super useful and complicated. Static PBR material displacement, I have no idea what that one is. I think that's a new one. And then you've got your basic unlit materials. For this one we're going to be using the dynamic PBR because I like it and I'm comfortable with it. Down here on the left hand side, you've got a 2D preview and a 3D preview. The 3D preview is basically just pretty much just what you've got here. You can change the model around, and it's separate from the main model, which could be useful if you wanted to see how it looks on a sphere and on a cube at the same time. I'm not exactly sure why you would. There's a histogram here and the 2D preview. I'm going to be leaving on the 2D preview because I find that extremely useful when I'm working on something. So we're just going to go over the different types of nodes that they've got. MaterialMaker uses a node-based system, so you can drag and drop from the left-hand side here, or you can right-click, and there's like a little toolbar of all the most important ones. This is probably the most important node you'll be using. It's a little reroute node. Basically this doesn't do anything, but it allows you to organize things really nicely. So you can drag this up here and then drag that over there. Lets you move around the little draggy bits. If you want to delete anything, you just click on it and press delete. It's super simple. Okey-dokey, right. The first thing I think we're going to go over is patterns. So up here on the left, you just click on the yellow pattern box, scroll down a bit, and this will show you all of the basic patterns. I'm going to just drag in a generic one. I think they're fairly useful. You can make a lot of different things with even just this. If I set this to bounce and then constant, and then I connect that up to the albedo, instantly we've got a nice line pattern. It's obviously super duper basic, but you know, it doesn't have to be anything special. We can also connect this up to the depth. Depth is, as the name would suggest, a way to give depth. I think it uses black areas are higher, white areas are lower. I'm pretty sure it works differently to everything else. Hold on, if I put in an invert node, we'll be able to find out. I'm pretty sure that's how it works with depth. Yeah, that looks like it's how it works. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I can't see very well on this one. Maybe. This doesn't make me look like a professional at all. To be fair, this isn't a perfect model for what we're doing. I'm going to just quickly load in a nice little example that we can see. Oh, that's the bark simple. Oops, that's not the one I wanted. Bark regular. You might be able to tell that bark regular and bark simple haven't been named incredibly. This is the same bark texture that was in the video I made before this one. The alternate way of texturing or whatever. As you can see, it's actually fairly simple. Oh, if you want to zoom in and out of this view, you just move your mouse over here and hold down Control and scroll in, scroll out. Super easy. There's actually not a lot to this, but obviously it's not all very intermediate stuff, so we'll go through that in a later episode. Let me just close that. Yeah, so this is bark regular. This is just a couple of noise textures, one pattern, and a depth map. And I mean, that I would say looks pretty good for something so simple. So we're going to go over, using this I think now because I've got it open, we're going to go over some of the simple things. You've already seen the pattern. On the left, because I've got it set to preview 2D, you can see all of the textures flat pretty much. So on this bit of noise, we've got a pattern node here and we're putting it through a colorize. This changes the intensity, I would say. Colorize is one of maybe the most important nodes that you're going to use. So it changes the intensity, I guess, of whatever you're putting into it. And obviously you can have this, you can add more colors and whatever to this, but this is just to keep it black and white and to mess with the intensity of that a little bit. And the warp node is we're putting this pattern through the warp node into the input, and the FBM noise is the height map. We've got the strength and the epsilon for this, and that's warping it to make it look like this. I know I'm not explaining this in the best way. Okay, I'm going to say this now. I think the best way to use MaterialMaker is just to play around with things until you've learned. I'm not a professional texture artist, and I mean, I can make stuff that looks alright. You know, there's no reason anyone else shouldn't be able to. But yeah, that's pretty simple. And then we're putting it through the same sort of colorized node, but with different colors. If you want to add a color to a colorized node, you just double click. You right click to remove. Super simple. If you want to change the color, you just double click on one of them, and you can mess around with it. You can make it white or whatever. I'm not going to save this as it is. I think I've messed it up a little bit. Blend nodes allow you to blend two inputs. So we're blending this with this, and we've got the, I don't remember why I plugged that into opacity. I think it's got something to do with how it looks. It's been a little while. But yeah, so we're taking an FBM noise, permanent noise, that I've adjusted slightly to give these nice, I guess, rings. I put that through a colorize node. You can affect the alpha channels of this. So you see I've got the alpha set to 0. It's super useful for just blending a simple pattern over the top of something. Incredibly useful. Transform node, rotate it, transform node. Yeah, you probably, if you're doing a pattern like this, a repeating pattern, you'll want to set the mode to repeat, because otherwise you'll end up with something like this. See on the bottom left. Or you can put it as extend. I think it's, I can't remember what the exact difference is. I know there is one though. But yeah, repeat's fine for this. Oops. I was right, yeah. Black is for raised areas, white is for lowered areas, for depth. So, you know, here we've got the black as the raised areas. We set up an invert node, that inverts it obviously, and then we plug that in, and you know, that gives us these nice grooves in the bark, I guess. Whoop, that was a funny jump cut. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just going to quickly go over the different properties for anyone that's not familiar. So you've got albedo, that's your basic texturing. If I remove this, there is no texture. It's pretty simple. You know, definitely a self-explanatory sort of thing. Metallic is for shiny things like metals or whatever. You do need to turn it up, and I don't think it's working particularly well with this texture. But you know, if you've got a metal, there's no reason it wouldn't. Oh no, actually I know why. It's because the roughness is set to 1. So if we set the roughness to 0, get a nice shine on that metal. It's quite nice. I'm going to set that back to 1, and the roughness back to 1, and the metallic back to 0, because I don't want this being metallic-y. Emission is for light. So if you want light on your texture, you would, you know, plug whatever into the emission. So if I take these rings and I plug them into the emission, that makes that whole thing emissive, and it apparently does not affect. It is not affected by alpha channeling. So be wary of that. Oops. Let's disconnect that. Normal is just for normal maps. There's a dedicated node for normal mapping. It's, you know, super simple. If you are planning on making fully procedural textures, I would not advise on normal mapping. It generates a separate image. So your normal map will not be a procedural normal map, which, I mean, obviously it won't be a procedural normal map, but it's one more thing to think about. And to be fair, the amount of detail it adds is fairly minimal. If I just get the normal map up again and plug that in and plug that into the normal, you know, sure, it looks good, but for something that people aren't really going to be looking at for more than 10 seconds, is it really worth it? You know, that looks nice, but you know, it's a redundant feature. Pretty much. Ambient occlusion is for, you know, shadows and lighting and whatever. I think that's a little more difficult to set up. I tend also not to bother with that. I generally use the lighting of the game engine I'm using, so I use those built-in lighting for these things. Depth is, you know, obviously the depth of things. At the moment we've got it set to the grooves. That's what we're putting in there. You can turn it up or down. See, if I set the depth to 0, it looks extremely flat. It doesn't look nearly as good as it does with even just a small amount of depth. That adds a whole other layer of character to this. And transparency is for, you know, things you want to be transparent, or things that, yeah, things you want to add transparency to, I suppose. So we've added it to the rings there, and that's giving us a level of transparency. I think it's also giving us a level of transparency because of the alpha channeling over the top of the entire thing. But if I set this up properly, it would exclusively. Well, maybe not. I'm not sure how exactly to set that up. But I mean, obviously, you get the idea. That didn't actually work in the last version that I was using, so I didn't use it as much. But now that I know it's working properly, there is a good chance I will use that, and I will probably make a tutorial on how to use the transparency properly. So yeah, pretty much. I think that's about it. I've demonstrated how to use colorize, some of the noise textures, the patterns. There's a whole bunch of patterns as well. You've got pre-made ones like tiles, pavements. I mean, you can basically just set these up however you want, and as long as you've got this 2D preview window open, you'll be fine. You'll be able to see exactly what you're doing. It's very simple. There's a bunch of really easy things that you can make. I'd recommend downloading it and giving it a try before you attempt anything too difficult. And I will say that simplicity is the best thing you can do for textures. This is basically what, like 2-3 things, layered over the top of one another. Nothing complex here, and it looks fine. If you walk past this in a game, you wouldn't say anything. You wouldn't even, not everything has to be, 8K ray traced, whatever. Sometimes just being simple with things is the best. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Stay tuned for the next one, I guess. If you liked it, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll probably heart react it. I don't get many comments on things, and yeah. Oh, and if there's anything specific you guys want to see for the next one, I know animated textures is a big one. That probably will be the next one, but the one after that, yeah, I mean, just leave it in the comments. I'll probably make it.